Good Thursday afternoon, everyone. It's weather for Weather Geeks Time, my daily online in-depth weather video that I try to get to at least every afternoon. Sometimes we do these on the weekends, sometimes we do them in the morning. Just depends on what's going on with the weather. Right now, of course, our weather is pretty tranquil, but it is the final day of July, so I wanted to do a quick recap of the month so far, at least in terms of the temperature, because no surprise, yeah, it's been cooler than average. And here's a look at the country as a whole. These are temperature anomalies we're looking at, in other words, the difference from average that this July has been. The cool colors here in the blues and the greens, of course, that is below average, and that encompasses most locations from the Rockies over towards the Appalachian Mountains, even a little east of there, with the heart of the extremes out here in the upper Midwest and into the Mississippi Valley. Here in Youngstown, about 2.5 degrees below average for the month, and that puts us now, so far as of last night, in a tie for 7th place. We're tied with 1971 here on the list of coolest Julys since 1930 in Youngstown. We'll see what the overall climate stats are for today. It's possible that today we jump up to 6th place, which we only need 1/10 of a degree to do that. So it'll be a close call, but 6th or 7th coolest July on record seems likely here in Youngstown. We've had cool Julys recently as 5 years ago in 2009, second coolest on record, and the coolest on record was in 2000 with an average temperature of 67 degrees. What about the warmest Julys on record? 1934, 1931, 1935, the Dust Bowl era. Very, very hot Julys back then. The most recent hot July was 2 and then 3 years ago, both in 2011 and 2012. We had some very, very warm Julys those years. All right, what's going on today? Not much. It's a pretty tranquil day. It's nice outside. Temperatures are going to try to get up to average. Not going to make it this afternoon, but they're going to try anyway. A couple of big storms erupting up there in New England, extreme eastern New York, heading into parts of Vermont. Also got some showers and a few embedded thunderstorms down in the deep south. But here at home, if you watch this loop, you can see we had a pretty clear sky for a lot of the morning, but as we got into the warmest part of the day, with still some chilly air upstairs in the atmosphere, the cumulus cloud field blossoms as the data reloads. I apologize since it's taking a minute here, but you'll see the cumulus cloud field kind of blossom up, and we've been carrying a 20% chance of a passing shower this afternoon in our forecast. I think at this point we can probably say that's just not going to happen. We're just going to be dry for the rest of the day today and enjoy some very, very nice weather. The satellite picture, unfortunately, taking a while to load today, so I'm going to stop the animation. Let me bring up the temperatures as of just before 2 o'clock p.m. Those are the dew points. These are the temperatures. We're in the mid-70s. We'll rise another degree or two on average. Pretty nice. Dew points also in the nice category, generally 50s to around 60 in some spots. There's almost kind of a subtle boundary right in here. Notice the dew point in Newcastle, 61, but it's 53 in Vienna. So you could even draw a little weak front in there somewhere, but bottom line is it's nice out. It's going to stay that way for the rest of the day today. All right, so what's going to happen for the rest of the week and heading into the weekend? At the surface, down here where we live, it's hard to pick out much of a discernible feature over the next few days that would cause it to rain or not rain. But if you look upstairs in the atmosphere a little bit, you can start to find these little features. I'm going to show you something I don't show often, but this is the mid-level airflow at about 500 millibars, about 18,000 feet up in the atmosphere. This is not as high as planes fly, which is 30 to 35,000 feet, but it's a level we look at to find what we call vorticity or spin in the atmosphere. And spinning air parcels oftentimes leads to uplift in clouds and maybe precipitation. Of course, the overall pattern right now features this big upper low over Hudson Bay, trough of low pressure in the east, ridge of high pressure out here in the west where it is hot. That's the overall pattern, but as we kind of drill down a little closer here, the reason why it's not doing much today is we're kind of between disturbances today. You can, if you look closely, you can see that there's kind of one little kink in the flow here up in the northeast, providing the thunderstorms there. Notice there's, this is kind of the heart of the next dip out here in the Midwest, and we're just sort of in between this afternoon. As I put this in motion over the next 24 hours or so, you'll notice that kind of bagginess or dip in the flow out in the Midwest starts to make some eastward progress. So here's tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Notice the heart of that trough or dip is approaching the Ohio Valley. As we get into tomorrow afternoon, it's inching closer. Now this is just one little disturbance that's kind of rounding the base of the overall big trough. You know, in a broad sense, there's a big trough in the east, but this is a little disturbance that's embedded in it, and I think this will enhance the cumulus cloud field tomorrow afternoon, and I think there's a somewhat better chance of getting a quick shower or thunderstorm tomorrow afternoon as opposed to today. It's still not going to be much. We're talking a 20, maybe 30% chance, 40 at the highest, but 20 or 30 most likely. But that's why tomorrow there's a somewhat better chance. And if we keep this animation going, let me fast forward to, let's see, this would be Saturday. That dip or disturbance is still pretty close by. By Sunday, it's starting to lift out. Notice it's not quite as sharp, and it's starting to push east. So I think Sunday's kind of the last hurrah for this overall cooler than average, unsettled weather pattern we're in now. Once we're beyond Sunday, it's not a hot pattern, but with a lack of a big dip in the jet stream over the east, more of a modest trough, if you will. We're going to see pleasant weather next week with more seasonable conditions. Here's the overall flow. Early next week, the features just aren't as strong next week. The ridge out west is still fairly strong. There's a ridge off the east coast as well. There's our tropical system that we'll have to keep an eye on. There is a bit of bagginess or a bit of a dip in the southeast, but again, it's not a real strong feature. All it's really doing is preventing the heat from building east. It's going to be seasonable next week, but the real hot stuff is going to stay out west. So that's the way things look in a broad sense. As far as the nitty-gritty, the details, here's the GFS model tomorrow afternoon. Again, spinning up a few things here and there, 20-30% chance. It's more like a 40% chance, I think, on Saturday. So a somewhat higher chance to get wet on Saturday, but far from a washout. If you've got outdoor plans, keep them. This is Sunday. We're going back to smaller chances, 20-30% Sunday afternoon. And then, you know, I mentioned next week, there's just not a lot of significant features tracking our way. So I think we start out dry early on next week. So that is today's weather for Weather Geeks. As we head through the next few days, any thunderstorms that pop up, I'll be sure to keep you updated with radar snapshots on Facebook and on Twitter. If you're not following meteorologist Mike Joyce yet, be sure and do that. Put meteorologist in front of his name to find him on Facebook, and he's Mike Joyce, WFMJ, on Twitter. Of course, you can find Jess on social media as well. We've got you covered on the social media end. We've got you covered online, and you can check out my forecast tonight, as always, on 21 News at 6 and 11.